Well, I think Mr. Clinton is being, frankly, dishonest, to use the word that he used himself to describe the estimates book, in the way that he has presented his argument to you. He knows that the government prepared an estimates book saying this could all change depending on how COVID manifests itself in the year to come. And people may be sick of hearing about COVID and Brexit. And believe me, nobody is sicker of hearing about COVID and Brexit than I am. I've even had COVID twice. But it's a reality that we have to deal with. And if you look at what happened at the tail end of last year, where we had, I think, the sixth wave or the fifth wave of COVID, which was the Omicron wave, we had to have more testing. We had to have a lot of deployment in departments. And look at, therefore, at what has happened in the context of the finances. You're seeing a GHA that is going to overspend by in the region of 15 million. You're seeing a COVID fund where we're going to have to take about 12 million more than we expected to take, and that's at the end of the year. That's 27 million. You extrapolate that forward for another 3 months, depending on what happens to the end of the financial year. And you look at the other departments where there is overspending, which is not all overspending which is unauthorized. For example, on scholarships, if you have more children qualify, young adults qualify for scholarships, that is demand-led. If they do, well, that's a fantastic thing, but we have to fund it. All of these things pile up. And what Joe Bossano said, and he's been very clear about that repeatedly, is, look, you've got some departments where controlling officers aren't acting properly. You've got some departments, and Mr. Bossano said this in Parliament, I should say. Sir Joe said this in Parliament on a number of occasions. You've got some departments where the controlling officers are excellent and bring their departments in exactly on budget. So all of those things together lead us to the situation where we're in, where you've got some authorized overspending beyond the amounts that Parliament has authorized, which is cured by a supplementary appropriation bill. You've got demand-led spending, which is provided for in Parliament also and is authorized subsequently by the supplementary appropriation bill. And then you've got the vicissitudes of the year in which we're living, where the COVID fund doesn't just deal with the amounts that we have to spend, it also provides for the foregone revenue that we don't receive. When you put all that together, Mr. Clinton should know, if he was following the debate in Parliament, which he appeared to be doing, that this sort of additional expenditure is one that we have to suffer. It's not a dishonest budget. It's a dishonest way of presenting the reality in which we're in.
Mr. Clinton was asking the government to confirm whether, I think you answered it in your first question, whether the overspend was entirely related to COVID.
The overspends that we're looking at are in different strands, with a very large measure related to COVID in two ways. The spending that has had to be done in respect of COVID and the lost revenue to Gibraltar as a result of the continuing pandemic, meaning that we don't have tourists, that we don't have other revenue that we would have had, etc. And then the additional overspending that you have in every year, some of it authorized, some of it unauthorized, some of it demand-led. And that's what we need to get right. As we look at curing this deficit, we have to ensure that those controlling officers that do well and bring their budgets in as they should are the ones that are praised, and those that don't bring them in and as they should for reasons that are not demand-led.
Wendy Cummings said it wasn't the financial controllers, it's actually the government who oversees it on a monthly basis.
No, that's not right. There are some instances where the cabinet and ministers have approved that there should be overspend, and that is approved expenditure in excess of the amounts voted by Parliament, which is cured either by varying in one head under the budget for that particular department, or supplementary expenditure, which subsequently also goes to the House. Or there are some instances where there is unauthorized expenditure, which has not been authorized by ministers or by the cabinet. Now, in some instances, that can be demand-led, and we have given permission for that overspending, because look, if you have a sponsored patient that needs to go immediately to a hospital outside of Gibraltar, you're not going to say, let's have a meeting of the cabinet to approve whether this person
and
gets
are you satisfied that it is demand-led?
In some instances, yes, and in some instances not. So what you cannot do on either side of this debate, or I should say, because it's multifaceted, on any side of this debate, is pretend that there is a general answer, a general problem and a general answer. This is a multifaceted problem that has to be fixed by all of us together, those who represent the clerical classes working for the government, those who represent the public and the public purse, etc., to make sure that we get this right, because where these things might not have mattered in the past, where you had surpluses of 80 plus million, it matters now because what we have is a deficit, and every penny more in deficit we have to analyze to ensure that it's a deficit that we have incurred because we have to, and not because we have in any way permitted any carelessness in the spending of public money.
But in a year where you've asked people to tighten their seatbelts, why haven't there been tighter controls on unauthorized spending, on unnecessary spending?
Well, this is the effect of the stricter controls. The highlighting of this issue is the effect of the stricter controls, which is what Minister Bossano, Sir Joe Bossano, is pursuing. And if there's anybody who is going to be the right person to pursue expenditure, which is not demand-led authorized expenditure, which is not foregone COVID revenue, which is not COVID required revenue, but which is in that strand, and we must pursue all strands, which is unauthorized expenditure, which should not have been permitted, it's going to be Sir Joe.